I'm Bill Isaac, and I'm chairman of LECG, Global Financial Services, a consulting firm that works with a lot of financial institutions and others, law firms around the country. And I have written a book called Senseless Panic: How Washington Failed Us, which is being published by Wiley and Sons. The book is something that I just had to do. It covers the years of the banking crisis of the 1980s, banking and S&L crisis, when I was chairman of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. During that period, we handled some 3,000 bank and thrift failures, and I was in the hot seat at the FDIC, which handled all these, including some very big banks. During that period, we lost 9 out of the 10 largest banks in Texas. We lost Continental Illinois, and we were in danger and we lost other regional banks around the country, and we were in danger of seeing the entire banking system collapse, including the money center banks. In fact, we had a contingency plan in place to nationalize all the major banks. It was that serious. So we just went through, in 2007 through 2009, a new banking crisis. A lot of people think it's the worst crisis since the Great Depression, and I see that reported that way in the press. And frankly, that's one thing that caused me to write the book, because I think people are not as familiar with history as they perhaps should be. The banking crisis in the 1980s, which lasted from 1980 through the end of 1991, was a very, very serious proposition with 3,000 bank and thrift failures. We won't come near that this time. And we won't have anywhere near the large bank failures this time that we had last time. What did happen this time is we had a panic. The crisis got out of hand, I think because the government mishandled it badly. We had bad policies in place. We made the wrong diagnosis of the problems in the 80s. We enacted the wrong reforms in the 1990s to hopefully prevent another crisis, and in fact we made it worse. And so I was sort of compelled to write this book. I had to write about our experiences in the 80s, how we handled that serious banking crisis and serious economic crisis, how we kept it under control compared to the way it got out of hand this time. We didn't have a panic back then. We had serious problems, but we kept them under control. I was very critical of the way the government handled the recent crisis and panic, creating a panic, and I had to write about that. And I also am very critical of the policy reforms that were put in place in the 1990s and the 2000s that took us in the wrong direction and helped make this panic happen, helped bring us this panic. And so I have recommended the reforms that we need to make this time so that we don't come back into crisis again. And that's all in this book. I don't know that we're going to listen to what I'm suggesting. So far, we're not. The bills that are pending in the Congress right now, in my opinion, would not have prevented the crisis we just went through. Had these bills been law, they would not have prevented this crisis, and they won't prevent the next crisis. And we are headed toward another crisis if what we do is enact these bills that are currently before the Congress. They are not making the reforms that this country needs. And that bothers me. I'm working hard. I've been spending a lot of time the last 2 years writing this book, meeting with members of Congress, making appearances on television and radio and other media. And I have written an awful lot of articles all on this subject. What went wrong? How do we prevent it from happening again? So I think the book's a good read, and I hope it makes a contribution to the debate that we need to have in this country.